We're coming on the air with breaking news and reports of a shooting incident in Minneapolis. The city says there is an active police situation at Annunciation Church, that the shooter is contained, and that there's currently no active threat to the community. No official word yet on how many victims. Governor Tim Walz says that he has been briefed on the situation and that he is praying for the kids and teachers who are in school there. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Adrian Broadus. Adrian, you and I have both worked in Minneapolis. It is my hometown. Annunciation Church is well known in South Minneapolis. It is not just a church, it is also a pre-K through 8th grade school that did begin classes just this past Monday. What are we learning right now?
Joe, you know that so well, and you know what the first week of school is like for many of students, not only in that neighborhood, but across the country. And now students there at Annunciation Church will have this as their first week memory. We're still waiting to hear from Minneapolis police, who have a heavy presence there on scene. We do not know how many people were injured. We do not know what led to this. We know the initial reports started coming in around 8 this morning. And I spoke with a source at the Hennepin County Medical Center, HCMC. That is the level 1 trauma hospital there in the city. And they are quite busy right now. My source telling me they're dealing with, quote, a mass casualty situation, calling this a crisis. So we're waiting to hear official word from Minneapolis police. And the last 24 hours, Joe, have been extremely violent and tough for officers and investigators there in Minneapolis. Before this active shooter incident, they were investigating 3 separate shootings within a 24-hour time span, including a mass shooting that injured 6 people and 1 person died in that shooting. So now these officers are stretched thin once again as they're trying to determine what happened here. But the latest information we received from the city of Minneapolis is that there is an active police situation at Annunciation Church, which, as we've been telling you throughout the morning, it's also connected to a school, which is pre through 8th grade, the first week of school for students there. There is no active threat to the community at this time. The shooter is contained. So we're waiting to hear who that shooter was, why the shooter was there, and why that person targeted this school and church in South Minneapolis, Joe.
And Adrian, what we also know, according to the school's website there, classes started on Monday, and on the schedule was an 8:15 a.m. Wednesday morning all-school mass. If that was happening, that would have been taking place, the mass, at the time that the shooting was first reported. Again, we are expecting to hear more from Minneapolis city officials in about a half an hour to learn more information about what may have happened here at Annunciation Church in Minneapolis as the investigation is ongoing. Let's bring in NBC News law enforcement contributor Evie Pompouris. Evie, tell us what is happening right now with the investigation, especially with the word that there's no active threat to the community at this time and that the shooter is contained. What is the focus for not just Minneapolis police, but also the State Patrol that's on the scene and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is sort of like the FBI for the state of Minnesota?
Yeah, so let's break this down into components. We know the shooter's contained, and when you hear that, you want to think, okay, self-inflicted gunshot wound, which sometimes happens in these active shooter scenarios where the shooter takes his own life. Was it somebody there physically at the school, perhaps that was armed, or was it by police? So those are the 3 things you're going to think of, like what happened to this shooter, and these are the 3 lanes. You're going to secure the environment. The next most important thing, obviously, are the injured. As you're saying, we're hearing mass casualty. Going to a trauma 1 hospital, and something you just mentioned before, we did that in the U.S. Secret Service as well. Trauma 1 means it's a hospital that can deal with the most trauma, gunshot wounds. So that's absolutely where you want to go when you have a scenario like this, because they have the tools and the skills to save lives. And so that's going to be the next most important thing happening. And then the levels of investigation, right? Once all this gets sorted out, and because these are the most important things, shooter and then obviously victims now. You're looking now at the investigation. So you mentioned the mass, 8:15 a.m. mass. Okay, So the individual committed this. Did they target that mass? Where exactly did the shooting take place? In the school or in the church? And then you're going to want to look at, was the shooter tied to the school or the church in some way, right? Was there a connection? Sometimes, not all, but sometimes we may see a connection with the shooter to the location that they decide to take action. And so you're going to look at those different things. Another thing, did they communicate this? We do often see that in these active shooter scenarios, did they communicate this? Did they post this? Did they tell anybody? One of the common denominators when you see these types of shootings, they will communicate it in some way, shape, or form, right? And then what was the goal? Because again, this is quite heartbreaking. You're looking at pre-K through 8th grade, very young children, a very terrifying scenario in the first week of school. And even if you look at the reporting for this week, there were even multiple college campuses that dealt with a lot of calls, active shooter calls. The majority of those did turn out to be swatting calls. So they would turn out to be false. But you actually had multiple schools, first, second week of school, going into lockdown. So we're seeing something really significant happening. Active shooting scenarios, and then also these false scenarios happening at these schools. Very terrifying.
Just as the school year is getting started for so many, most in Minnesota, actually in public schools, don't begin until the day after Labor Day, but some of the private schools, including Annunciation, starting earlier this week. Evie, Adrian mentioned this has been an especially violent last 24 hours in Minneapolis, including another shooting in another part of South Minneapolis yesterday afternoon. 7 people shot, 1 killed. At last check, no suspect there. Presumably, will police be looking to see if there is any link between these shootings?
You know, I don't know, because when you're looking at violent crime on the street, it's different than violent crime like this, right? So we're looking at 2 very different scenarios. I immediately don't think in my head that they're connected. I'm not saying that they're not, but it depends what kind of shootings those were. Were they on the, altercations on the street? Where did they take place? This is different. This is, I'm going to a specific place, a school, a place of worship with children to conduct a mass shooting. So to me, those are 2 very different elements. Violent crime, although this is violent crime, but violent crime, as you're talking within the 24 hours in the city, in that area, is different than something like this, typically to someone like me. Again, we can't say that they're not connected, but this is someone who, did they plan it? Did they do reconnaissance, right? Their weapon, that's the other thing. Law enforcement's going to look at the weapon. Did they get it? Was it legally purchased? How did they get it? How long did they have it? They're going to go through even their devices. Did they research this? How long did they research this? How long did they plan this out? How did they know about the 8/15 mass, right? All these different things. So from the point I'm at now, I don't see them as connected. Again, as we get more information, that may reveal different significance.
All right, Evie, thank you so much. We do want to bring in retired ATF Special Agent in Charge, Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, we are also getting word from Hennepin Healthcare that a news conference will be taking place, scheduled for about 10 minutes from now, with an update on patients after this shooting. Hennepin County Medical Center is the primary level 1 trauma center there in Minneapolis. Jim, we have about a minute left here, but tell us, what is the investigation? What are police focused on most right at this moment?
Well, they're focused on the victims, the Family Reunification Center, making sure they're notified quickly what the situation is with the families, and they really need to be focused on getting word out to the community, which they've put out a word that the shooter is contained or maybe deceased, but they need to speak more clearly. They did good on that, but they need to get out there, be the face, be the chief, get out there, reassure the community. This can be a devastating day for Minneapolis. A rifle on children. Some early reports said it might have been in the street, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and that will be one of the primary questions that we hope to get answered from city officials, is exactly where this shooting took place. And also the city of Minneapolis saying that it has set up a reunification zone nearby the scene of this incident. No active threat to the community at this time. The shooter is contained at this time. All right, and we now can confirm the gunman did die from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We are going to be back on the air for that hospital news conference, and as news warrants, this concludes our NBC News special report. More ahead on News Daily and our streaming network, NBC News Now, and online at NBCnews.com. A full wrap-up tonight on Nightly News. I'm Joe Fryer. Thanks for watching.
There's no active threat to the community. MPD saying that the threat has been neutralized. Lou Raguse has sources telling him that the shooter is dead. Richfield police sharing in a Facebook post that there are 20 victims. That's the information they have from law enforcement. Also, information that this was a shooter who was dressed all in black and walked in with a rifle, with a gun, and opened fire.
Yeah, 20 victims here. Obviously, it triggered a mass casualty response. We know Richfield getting involved here, assisting MPD with just this horrific tragedy. And right now, they're urging parents trying to be reunified with their kids to go to the reunification center that's at 54th, and I'm trying to get the exact address here. Want to make sure I give parents the right information.
525 West 54th Street. That's the reunification zone at Annunciation School. We heard our Jessica Hart on the scene, who was talking about kids being led away and with their parents with MPD. I cannot imagine the relief that these parents feel as they reunify with their kids, because during that time when they don't know what's happening, when they don't know who is safe, are there victims? Is the shooter still active, or has that shooter been stopped? So those moments when they get to hug their kids just absolutely have to be so meaningful and so relieving, but also so devastating, because they know that their kids are going to be experiencing this.
Yeah, it's trauma that is going to stick with them for a long time. We have our Jessica Hart out there on the scene, and she's been watching parents come up and get their kids out of the school. Jessica, what are you seeing right now? What can you tell us?
Yeah, Jason and Lauren, more kids are being escorted out here by their parents. Now what they're doing is that they're bringing these parents in groups. So they're bringing them in groups kind of around the side of the school here, just in groups of maybe about half a dozen or so. And then a few minutes later, they walk out with their kids. Now, many of them have been holding their child's hand or put their hands on their shoulders. And the kids have walked by us a few times, and just the look on their faces, they look scared. They look fearful. The neighbors in this area tell me this was the second day of school for these kids. They were supposed to be having fun, starting a new school year, but instead they're leaving, just some of them just honestly looking like just blank stares, like they're still processing or trying to figure out what exactly happened and what they went through here. And you can see the emotion too on the parents' faces. Relief that they have their child, but you can also see their eyes watering and the tears starting to form, that this is something that their child has now had to go through, and they need to figure out what exactly comes next. So they're still escorting kids out of the school here. We've seen really young kids, we've seen teenagers walk out here, all as Minneapolis police stand guard around the entire perimeter here. We've also seen some HSI agents walk on the scene about 7 minutes ago. So law enforcement are still coming here to help out with this scene. The ambulances that we saw earlier this morning, none of them have left. We haven't seen anyone get inside either of them. There's about 7 of them here near the intersection of Garfield Avenue and 54th Street, but still a very large police presence. We haven't seen it kind of dwindle. It looks like we might have a school instructor or pastor just kind of walking the perimeter of the school, checking in with people here. So it's still a very active scene from where we're at. We have not seen any officers leave the scene. We've been seeing more and more families just kind of quietly exit the scene and take their kids back home here. So just a very kind of solemn scene. There's still a lot of people just kind of watching around here on the outskirts. Many of them are neighbors, and they just wanted to come here to see if there's anything they could do. They heard about this, and they either have known someone inside, but they don't know if the people that they know are inside are okay. Lauren, Jason?
And that's the thing, like the unknown, going there and not knowing if your loved one, if your child, if they're doing well in the aftermath of this.
Not only were they hurt, but also how close were they? What did they witness? What did they hear? What did they see? What happened to their friends? We do have some new information here, and we want to just be very careful to let you know what we know, what is confirmed, and what is not. This comes from a source. Lou Raguse telling us that a source tells him 3 people are dead, including the shooter. Now, again, all of this information is so preliminary because these things are chaotic when they're happening. So even police are trying to get a handle on what they're seeing and what they can confirm. But a source telling Lou Raguse 3 people are dead, including the shooter. And that the shooting occurred during the morning mass, which we have been reporting is at 8:15 every morning, was likely this morning, we're told from people who are part of that school community, an all-school mass. And of course, it's 10:11 now. We're being told that at 10:15, we should get more information on the victims from HCMC.
Yeah, 3 dead, like you mentioned, not sure of ages. We don't know if they're kids, adults. Still working on that information, that preliminary information from a high-level source, according to Lou. 3 people dead as of right now, 20 people, 20 victims here is what we're told, according to Richfield PD. So hopefully more clarity coming here in the next few minutes, but just awful stuff, absolutely horrible. Second day of school, and this is happening to these kids.
Second day of school in a church community, in a school community. Most of the specific details we have right now are coming from Richfield Police rather than from Minneapolis Police. Richfield Police assisting MPD. And so when they say 20 victims, keep in mind, victim does not mean deceased. That could be a person who has been injured in this mass shooting that occurred. MPD source telling Lou that 3 are dead, including the shooter. And MPD did confirm earlier that the shooter was no longer a threat. Lou's sources told him earlier that that shooter was dead. It will be very interesting to hear from HCMC the type of injuries that they're seeing coming in. We know that there have been ambulances coming there. They were told to prepare for a mass casualty event. Oh, we are now hearing that the HCMC presser delayed to 11 o'clock. So we will have to wait a little bit more for some of those specifics.
As of right now, City of Minneapolis still on track to hold a press conference here at 10:30, but that HCMC conference has been delayed. So we're still gathering more information. Information is still trickling in bit by bit, little by little. It's a very active scene. We have our reporters fanned out across the area right now trying to gather more details. We can tell you that there's no longer an active threat to the community. So if you're living in that neighborhood, you're wondering what's going on, you're looking out your window, no active threat to the community. We are told that shooter is contained. Again, still waiting on details in terms of the total number of victims, the total number of casualties. We're told by Lou Raguse, by a high-level source, that 3 people are dead right now. Not sure of the ages, not sure adult, child, and whatnot. Still working on that information, but we can tell you that the shooter is contained.
Okay, and you're looking at live pictures from the scene right now. You see canines out there. You see officers guarding the perimeter. We know from a different angle, Jessica Hart is seeing children being reunited with their parents here outside of Annunciation Church and School. Our Lou Raguse has been talking with his sources all morning. He joins us now on the phone. Lou, what have you been able to learn about the response to this active shooting threat?
Looks like we're having issues with Lou's connection. Obviously, a lot going on right now. Just going to try to get reconnected with him to get more information, but Lou is well-placed sources out there. Lou, can you hear us?
Okay, we're going to work on getting Lou on the phone because he has been doing reporting on this all morning, has sources in Minneapolis police who are giving him information in real time. And again, with information coming in a situation like this, it can always change. These things are fluid. Police officers, law enforcement, hospital authorities, public officials are giving us the information as they know it in that moment, but it changes for them too. They get new information and then they share it. And so we are going to try and just be very clear about what we know, how we know it, and bear with us in this because we're just trying to keep everyone as informed as we can. Obviously, a tragic day in Minneapolis, the beginning of the school year, a church and school where they were celebrating a back-to-school mass, an all-school mass at 8:15 this morning. And we are told that there was a gunman who came into that school community or that church community, I'm not sure which exact building, they are connected, and opened fire. An active shooter situation which has now been contained. Lou Ragusa's sources telling him that shooter is dead, but sadly also telling him that at least 3 people are dead in this shooting.
Yeah, the shooter armed with a rifle, dressed in all black. And as we mentioned here, when it comes to those rifles, those high-powered weapons, the damage they do, it's just horrible. And you know, it would be interesting to hear from HCMC to see the extent of the injuries. But those weapons can really tear through people and really cause a lot of damage. And imagine all that. I mean, I hate to even bring it up, but when it comes to little kids, like a weapon like that, you know, doing that kind of damage, just unimaginable.
Yes, there has been incredible reporting about that and what those type of weapons do to a child's body. We have seen it again and again in this country at school shootings. This time, it appears to be happening right in our community here in Minneapolis, in the Tangletown neighborhood of Minneapolis, at Annunciation Church and School. And these things do ripple throughout an entire community because every single parent watching this is thinking of their own kids at their own school and sending them off. A lot of schools don't start till next week. A lot of schools began this week. My son had his first day of school today. And so these school communities, these parents, all can put themselves in these shoes of how awful this is. All right, we are going to try now and go again to Lou Ragus, who has been reporting on this all morning. Lou, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Lou, what can you tell us about this situation? What are you learning?
Well, first of all, I'll start with the worst news, which is indeed the fatalities. And as of right now, 2 innocent people have been confirmed to me to have been killed in the shooting. The 3rd death is the shooter. The 3rd fatality is the shooter, who is confirmed to me to be dead. And one of the 2 victims, I'm told, is a child. I'm going to kind of hold back right now on the age type information because although this is coming from high level sources, there's often what I refer to as fog of war reporting, where even the people at the top are getting information so fast that sometimes little mistakes can be made. So I don't want to say an age that ends up being incorrect here, but sadly, I'm being told that one of the fatalities so far is confirmed to be a child. Right now, we're at the scene. It's blocked off in all directions. And right now, Minneapolis police officers are kind of going door to door in the neighborhood. We're off of Garfield and 53rd Street right now. And I'm not going to, say where exactly they're going through houses, but there's they're just the sense that I get is that it's just to make sure there's no more threat. And so police are kind of going door to door. People are standing outside. It's, just as horrible as you can imagine. People are in shock. It's actually eerily quiet around the neighborhoods with all the people just in disbelief right now.
Lou, this information, it is the absolute worst news that a child killed on their 2nd day of school. I'm wondering, you mentioned that the gunman is one of those who is deceased. Do we have any indication as to whether the gunman took his own life or whether there was a confrontation with police?
No, we don't. And just to give you an idea of how this information comes in, like to me, from decent sources throughout the morning, I was hearing, the possibility that there may have been more than one shooter. And I do not have that confirmed. I was hearing that the shots may have came from outside before hearing that they came from inside. So that just tells you how many different directions the information comes from when something like this happens. And so reporting publicly right now.
Yeah, and we very much appreciate that, Lou. We have to be careful about sharing information that we know to be accurate.
There were reports of potential IEDs or...
that was another thing that I heard, although I don't specifically see bomb squads and robot drones at this moment. So I don't have a visual on that, but that is other information that I heard from decent source at one point this morning.
And Lou, Richfield Police sent a Facebook message this morning that indicated 20 victims, and that's what they were being told by law enforcement.
That was the initial information, and that goes to initially. That's not confirmed to be true. Like I also heard a number that was closer to 11 people that were potentially hurt. So the numbers have not been confirmed yet. We're hoping at 10:30 here that we might get a little more official information on stuff like that. But that just tells you that even the police at the very beginning are told the initial information, like what's being called in on 911, for example, and then even they are sorting through all the facts at this time.
Okay. A lot of moving parts here. Lou, thank you very much. We're going to allow you to get back to work. If you have any other information.
One last thing. One last thing. The family reunification is still going on as we speak, and so we're seeing parents and children reuniting here. And on top of that, there's a lot of concerned people from the community that have basically come out here to see exactly what is going on. But the area is blocked off for about 2 blocks in each direction. And obviously, if you don't have a loved one here that you need to pick up, it's probably a good idea to stay away because it's very congested, a lot of traffic. Took me a long time to even get close here driving in from home this morning.
Certainly, Lou, that is good advice. Stay away unless you are there to pick up a loved one. And I know you can relate to what those parents are going through with that reunification and how emotional that is. Lou, thank you for the reporting, and thank you for being clear about what we are able to confirm and what we can't. Your point is well taken, that even for police officers, information in a situation like this is incredibly fluid, and what may be true at one point, new information comes in, It is no longer true a short while later. Not sure what we were looking at on that live picture there. We saw a number of people seeming to enter that building just now. That's the front of the school. And looked like people in fatigues entering the building. So that is, whether that's part of the investigation or some other response, it is unclear. We do have reporters on the scene who will keep us updated as soon as they have any additional information.
So the Associated Press right now reporting a Minneapolis hospital, not specifying which one, says it's treating 5 children injured from a shooting at a Catholic school. That's coming from the Associated Press. 5 children being treated at a hospital right now. And then, of course, Lou reporting the unthinkable, the news that we did not want to hear, that a child, according to his sources, according to his law enforcement sources, among the dead here, 3 dead, including a child and the shooter as well. We are expecting a press conference here from the city of Minneapolis. It's set to start here at around 10:30. Expecting to get some more information on victims here, the shooter, exactly what happened here. There's so many questions right now, and we wish we could give you more details, but we're just kind of learning everything as we go along here from our sources out there in the field, from our reporters out there in the field, and we're hoping to get some more information to you very, very soon. But what we can tell you, 3 dead, including the shooter, according to our sources. That shooter obviously neutralized and no longer a threat to the community.
All right, we do have a new statement from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty about this shooting at Annunciation Church. Moriarty says, "We are aware of the horrific mass casualty situation at Annunciation Catholic Church. Our hearts break as we write this. Families seeking to reunify with loved ones who are at Annunciation should go to 55th and Lyndale. Staff from our victim services team will be on that site, and as information becomes available to our office, we will update the public."
Yeah, a number of police here, as we can see, a number of law enforcement making their way around the school, into the school, obviously securing the scene, and a long investigation here still to come in the aftermath of this. Just horrible.
And we see them there. You know, we talk about the impacts on the school community, on parents, on families, which of course is the greatest, the families and loved ones of the victims, but also these police officers, first responders, paramedics, came here to a scene in which children were shot. And that has to be an awful thing.
You think about
that they are dealing with as well.
You think about that, you think about the doctors and the nurses and the surgeons that are going to have to deal with these gunshot injuries because, as we mentioned, the shooter was carrying around a rifle. It wasn't a handgun, not a regular weapon. It's a rifle. This is going to cause a lot of damage. And you're talking about, I don't know the ages of these children, but you're talking about kids that with these gunshot wounds.
It is a K through 8 school. Audrey Russo sent a photo, and I don't know if we're going to share because we want to be very careful about what we share. But as I look at this, these are little children. This is a K through 8 school holding their parents' hands, one holding the hand of a police officer, walking out of that school to be reunited. You know, kids who barely come up to the officer's elbow. So we are talking about some very small children here who are dealing with this.
That should never have to experience this on their second day of school. Not ever.
Never, ever.
But especially on their second day of school as the year is starting off with just so much hope and for this to happen. Man, oh man.
It makes a person incredibly sad, incredibly angry.
And fearful.
Yeah, and you know, there are neighbors in this community who have witnessed things here, who have been trying to get information, also wanting to see how they can help. We did speak with one. Let's see if we can bring you that sound.
So we live about 2 blocks from here. I was on a call. All the windows of our home were open. I know what gunfire sounds like, and I could tell. I was shocked. I said, "There's no way that could be gunfire." There was so much of it.
Yeah, the sounds. You probably never forget the sound of especially of a rifle like that going off, and then when you find out that it's at the school, that's when the panic starts to set in.
Of course.
On top of that.
Yeah, absolute panic. And for these neighbors who are there in that community, you know, I mean, a church, a school, it's very much a part of the neighborhood to which it belongs.
Yeah.
As we say, these things do not happen in a vacuum. When you have someone assault a school community, in fact, other school communities are dealing with this too. We know that another Catholic school in Edina went on lockdown for a while, just out of an abundance of caution. I got an email from my son's school district.
Yeah, Our Lady of
saying,
Grace. Yeah, in
Edina.
In
It's
Edina.
in Edina. And then I got an email from my son's school district there in school today saying that for a period of time, out of an abundance of caution, they had extra security. So these sort of things ripple throughout an entire community. We do want to go to our Gordon Severson, who is live now reporting on this. Gordon, can you tell us where you are and what you've been able to determine?
Yeah, we're here at the corner of Grand Avenue and West Diamond Lake Road, and this is where police are going to be giving us an update in just a couple minutes here. We're expecting it at 10:30. You can see behind me here, there's just dozens of squad cars, a very strong police presence here. Behind us on the other side that you can't see, dozens more police cars. And, you know, walking over here, I parked on kind of the other side of the school when I got to the scene and came over here to meet up with our photographer who's shooting this right now. And I saw just dozens of families, you know, meeting up with their kids. A lot of parents, you know, obviously panicking, seeing a lot of people that had obviously been crying all morning, a lot of emotions walking over here. And I'm sure it's of a relief from a lot of these parents finally getting to meet up with their kids. And so we're hoping to get some information, some more updated information from police in just a few minutes. I did see a squad pull up here that, you know, might be them, but it's any minute now, so we're going to keep, you know, here at the scene and get you whatever updates we can in just a few minutes.
All right, Gordon, thank you very much. Yeah, stand by. That press conference here is set to start. It's scheduled for 10:30. You know, these things don't always start on time. Yes. Obviously, it's active situation, so they're still gathering information and details, but it should be beginning here within the next few minutes. And then we have another press conference from HCMC planned for 11 o'clock. We should know more about the victims then as well.
Many of those victims taken to HCMC. And you're right. I mean, it's a fluid situation as we're trying to bring you information. It's a fluid situation for Minneapolis police. They are constantly getting new information. They want to make sure the information that they provide to the community is accurate, because that is so important at this point. You want people in the community to know what has happened, to feel safe. And at this point, what they can tell you is that this situation is under control. The shooter is among the people dead. I asked Lou Ragoose, do we know if the shooter took his own life or if there was a confrontation with police officers? At this point, we don't know. That is always, of course, something that you do want to get answers to in a situation like this. Also, the number of casualties. When I say casualty, I don't simply mean those who are deceased. We know that there are people being treated for their injuries as well. So these are questions that we still have. And I'm sure they're also trying to work inside the school. We've seen a number of law enforcement come and go from inside that school of laying out a timeline, what happened, where, and when. Yes. The initial reports were 20 casualties potentially, but that number is going to fluctuate. You know, things get lost, as Lou mentioned, in the fog of war. You hear the initial reports, and then those numbers are adjusted once investigators receive new information. So probably doesn't make any sense to even give a number here until we hear it officially from police, which in that press conference, which is set to start here in just a couple of minutes. But we have heard from our Lou Raguse, confirmed by police sources that at least 3 people are dead, including the shooter, and unfortunately, a child included among the dead. Just awful. Again, he, I think, wisely was being careful as to not give an age or grade level of that child until everyone is accounted for, until parents are reunited with their children. We certainly do not want to cause anyone undue stress or panic, as I know this morning that for about 2.5 hours now, this school community has been going through absolute trauma after a mass shooting at their church and school. Let's see what we can see there now. The crime scene team just pulling up. These are the forensic folks from law enforcement who will go in, who will gather evidence, who will do all of that sort of scientific work to build a case and build a timeline and really help law enforcement understand what happened here. Yes, also going to be interesting to see what the motive was. You know, the shooter is down, so we're not going to hear from him or her, but you know, as the investigation continues, why would someone carry out such a heinous attack on a church, on a school, on the second day of school? I mean, those are all questions that have to be answered here in the coming days, that we hope will be answered here in the coming days. Certainly. I mean, there is no good reason. There is absolutely not a reason that would make sense to any rational person, but it is important to try and get to the bottom of how this happened, why this happened, were there signs? And so these are all things that that law enforcement is right now beginning the work of answering. These are long-term investigations with a lot of different sources of information. First priority in a situation like this, securing the scene, making sure people are safe. The victims, getting kids reunited with parents, that we're told is still an ongoing process right now. They're taking people in groups. But then the long process of piecing together the details of the crime begins. So we should be getting more information here from Minneapolis police in the next few minutes. There was a press conference scheduled for 10:30. You obviously forgive them for their tardiness here. They're obviously gathering more information, trying to speak to folks and trying to make sure they have all their information together before they announce anything to the public. But we are standing by for that press conference here at 10:30 or anytime soon. It should be here in the next few minutes. At any point. Actually, Lou said that they've just changed the location of that news conference, so we may be waiting a little while longer. Maybe a little bit longer, yeah. And for anybody watching this morning, I'm sure parents of the kids at that school are already aware of what's going on, but the Reunification Center, 55th and Lyndale, they have resources waiting there for people, victim service teams on site to help people through what is an absolute tragedy for this community. Yeah, you heard that neighbor speak just a short while ago, talking about hearing a large number of gunshots, something he recognized and was shocked and said, wait, that couldn't be gunshots. This, you know, it's a quiet community, Tangletown. It's densely populated, but a quiet, really tight-knit community. And then later to learn that, you know, those shots are coming from a church and school. I'm being told that, well, I'm not sure what our video there is. We may have been trying to see the Reunification Center, but right now we are looking at crime scene photos or crime scene team on site. And here is the Reunification Center. You can see the anguish on people's faces, just awful. I have said it before. You see that woman clutching her chest. When you know your child or your grandchild or your loved one has been a part of something like this, every moment you wait to reunite with them feels like a lifetime. every single one of these people is not going to feel that their kids are safe until they can hug them, put hands on them, and just let them know how much they love them.
Yeah, you know, as a parent, and I'm not a parent, Lauren, obviously you are, but you wake up and you send your kid to school, and you know, back in the day when we were kids, you never doubted that you were going to come home safe.
Yeah.
But the way things have evolved over the last couple of decades here, nowadays, you send your kid off to school, and you do have that thought in the back of your mind of, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, that can't happen here. It's never going to happen here until it does happen here, until it does come to your backyard. And now these parents are going to have to deal with the aftermath of that. These kids are going to have to deal with the aftermath of that.
It is such a good point, and it's something communities throughout our entire country have dealt with for years now. Now a school community in South Minneapolis dealing with this. And I think parents can relate to this. Your little kids go to school and you get the email saying that they're going to be doing the active shooter drill that day. And your heart just sinks a little because you think it's so horrible that they have to do that, and you just pray that they'll never, ever have to use those skills.
Yeah.
And at this community, today they did.
Yeah. Man, it's heart-wrenching. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. This you just have no words. And for as often as this happens in America nowadays, every time it's just a shock to the system. It's just gutting, because you know that, like you mentioned, kids are gonna have to deal with the aftermath of it, and the community is gonna have to heal from this. And some of these kids may have injuries that are life-changing. Some of these adults at the school, instructors and whatnot, may have these injuries that are life-changing.
Yeah, and you know, teachers, in this case it may have been in the church, so perhaps pastors or clergy, they're put in this situation of having to protect these young children. You know, I think as a parent, you are so grateful to the teachers for all that they do for your kids. And then you know that in a situation like this, they could be responsible for these kids' lives. And so we have put so much pressure on teachers and clergy and other people who are involved in their lives to not only teach and comfort, but protect in situations like this. You know, we were talking about church communities and how tight-knit they are, and how that is so much a place of peace and hope for people. And earlier today at HCMC, we were able to speak to a pastor who grew up in this neighborhood, but is actually a pastor, a Catholic priest at a different church, who came to the hospital to be with families. Let's hear a little bit of that.
Well, I'm a pastor as well at St. Olaf downtown, and when I got the news of the mass shooting at Annunciation, I thought I'd come down to HCMC to comfort the parents or whoever's here, just to be a presence from the Archdiocese with them.
What was your thought when you heard about what happened?
It was horrific. And I grew up in that parish, so it has meaning to me now, but it shouldn't be happening. And what happened on 8th and Hennepin this morning, Lake Street yesterday, something's got to happen here in the city to stop this.
That was Bishop Kevin Kenny there, and he did mention the other shootings that happened, and that's something we were talking about all morning long, if you watched Sunrise this morning, of the 3 shootings that happened over the course of 16 hours or so in Minneapolis. You had one in broad daylight yesterday around 1 o'clock, a person shooting at a group of people, 6 people injured, 1 person killed there. And then later on that night, around 10 o'clock, another person killed in Minneapolis. And then just a few hours later, about 4 hours later, 2 o'clock in the morning, yet another person shot and killed. So it has been a violent 24 hours here in Minneapolis, and this only adds to the pain that the community has seen over the last couple of days.
Right, and then the most recent shooting, this mass shooting at shortly after 8 o'clock this morning at a church and school in the Tangletown neighborhood of Minneapolis. We have been sharing this throughout the morning. We shared it on Sunrise as well. But that mass shooting yesterday afternoon happened across the street from a high school, Cristo Rey High School in Minneapolis. Yet another group of kids, this time teenagers, it's a high school, who were in the middle of their school day and heard gunshots. I mean, the audio of that was shared, dash cams from the community picked it up, 30 gunshots. So kids at that high school heard the shooting yesterday, and now younger kids, this is a K through 8 school, Annunciation school, faced with gunfire this morning in their safe place, in their school and church community. We do have public officials reacting to this throughout the morning. Many of the people who represent this area, Senator Amy Klobuchar, I believe, recently tweeted out a statement saying, "I am heartbroken by the horrific violence at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis this morning. My prayers are with the students, teachers, and families, and I am grateful for the first responders who are on the scene."
Yeah, I've heard a number of statements. We've heard from the governor, Governor Walz. We've heard from Mayor Frey. President Trump also chiming in on social media as well. I'm trying to pull that up here. Also hearing from the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. We are aware of reports of a shooting at a Catholic school in Minnesota. FBI agents are on scene, and we ask everyone to keep potential victims, civilians, or law enforcement in harm's way in your prayers. The FBI will provide updates as more information becomes available. Again, that's from FBI Director Kash Patel.
And this was President Trump on Truth Social. "I have been fully briefed on the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The FBI quickly responded and they are on the scene. The White House will continue to monitor this terrible situation. Please join me in praying for everyone involved."
You know, the eyes of the nation probably on Minnesota right now, and you never wake up expecting for this to happen in your backyard. You see the news and you see it happen in other cities and other states, and you never know the impact of it until it hits close to home like this. And you could just, the heaviness, the weight that it puts on you and puts on the community is just, it's gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I mean, you feel it right now. Place of learning. It is a truly horrific thing. This has happened around the country in every type of city, town, neighborhood, and school. Parochial schools like this one, public schools, colleges, elementary schools, big towns, small towns, the city of Minneapolis. So there really is nowhere that is immune from this type of violence.
It's everywhere. Can happen anywhere. Let's get back out to our Jessica Hart. She is live on the scene right now. Jessica, I understand you're seeing canines in the area. What's going on?
Yeah, Jason, we saw about 3 canines walking up and down Garfield Avenue here, just kind of searching for any evidence. We actually saw one of the officers and his canine go into the back of a business. They're just kind of combing the area, searching the area. Now, we did have the crime scene team kind of arrive on scene here about 20 minutes ago. And about 10 minutes before they arrived, we actually saw a huge law enforcement presence walk down West 54th Street. I saw ATF, FBI. You were asking about bomb squad earlier. I also saw people in bomb squad vests, Homeland Security, state troopers. I was told those officers were not leaving the scene. They were just relocating somewhere else. The state trooper couldn't tell me exactly where, but there were dozens of law enforcement officers walking down this street in unison. Now, they have still kept a perimeter around the school here. It hasn't really lightened up. We've seen what appears to be some school officials just standing out front here. Now, the 2 ambulances that were parked where the crime scene team is, they've since left, but there are still at least 5 ambulances on site here as families are still reuniting with one another. We haven't seen people walk out from, I've been told they've been kind of staying in the gym, walking out from back behind the gym in about 10 minutes or so. But I did speak with one woman who lives nearby. She was actually with her grandson just out in the yard, and she heard 3 rounds of shots. When she heard that 3rd round of shots, she said she took her grandson inside to her daughter's house. Her daughter didn't necessarily believe it at first, but then they heard the sirens and they knew that something terrible had happened. Now, she had actually come to school here. She got married nearby at the church. Her kids went to school here. So to see this happen in her neighborhood, she told me, it's just unimaginable that she saw this. Another woman I also talked with who didn't want to go on camera actually helped escort some of the kids out of the school to safety, and she said she will never forget the look on one of the little girls' faces who was just worried about her siblings. She said she couldn't stop talking about her siblings, and just the fear in her eyes is something that she feels will forever stay with her. Now, there were some people kind of over in this area who were just waiting to get word to see if their loved one that they knew inside was okay, and they found out that this person was. We just actually saw someone walk outside of the school here and just kind of looks like collapsing on the ground. It looks like fire EMS is kind of going over to see if she's okay, but I think she is just kind of reeling from what had happened inside. She's just kind of laying on the ground there. So that just kind of shows you how emotional and difficult this scene is. She just made it only a few steps out of the school before she kind of collapsed into what appeared to be a coworker or a friend's arms. Now there have been more people kind of walking in and out the front entrance of the school. Looks like school personnel. We've seen police kind of coming in and out here, but there's still that really heavy presence around the perimeter of the school, and just more and more people seem to kind of be coming down, seeing what's going on. They heard what was happening and they just wanted to come be here. Some people, as I mentioned earlier, know people who went to school here or just wanted to see if there was anything they could do to help people in this situation. But again, we are here at the intersection of Garfield Avenue and West 54th Street. We did see some police officers search the neighborhood with canines. They went into the back of a business. And we've also seen just dozens of officers kind of walking down the street here together in unison. So it's still a very somber scene. When you see the kids come out, it's been a while since they've come out from this area. It's just the look of fear and just blank stares across their face, just at the horror that they have just been through. So Lauren, as soon as we learn anything, we'll let you and Jason know immediately. Back to you.
Oh my goodness. Jessica, thank you for that reporting. You paint just such a vivid and horrible picture of the emotion people are experiencing there. A woman collapsing as she walks out of the school. One must imagine from the stress, from the trauma.
Yeah, easy to become overwhelmed by grief of the current situation, knowing what occurred in that building, knowing that people died in that building. I can understand completely that reaction. Just really, really terrible stuff. Again, we are waiting for a press conference here that's supposed to start any minute now from Minneapolis police. We're told that Chief Brian O'Hara is on the scene right now. So we're going to expect to hear from him and other officials very, very soon here.
At the same time, we are also waiting to hear from doctors at HCMC who have been treating victims, more on the conditions of the people who were taken to the trauma center there. And, you know, condolences continue to pour in, as well as statements from public officials. This from Katie Cashman, a Minneapolis city councilor, who says this morning at Annunciation Church and Catholic School, someone shot and wounded multiple children and staff while they attended morning mass. At this moment, the shooter is contained. Our office is closely monitoring the situation. We have been given a variety of numbers from a variety of sources about the number injured this morning. We're going to be careful with those at this point because this is a situation that is so fluid that even the officers on scene, even law enforcement, is trying to get a handle of what exactly they're dealing with. Lou Raguse tells us from high-level sources that 3 people are dead, including the shooter, and most tragically, including at least 1 child.
Yeah, unimaginable tragedy out there. We're still waiting for the number of total victims. We should hear from HCMC, that press conference scheduled for 11 o'clock. I don't know if they're going to push that back at this point because we still haven't heard from MPD. Obviously, this is still a very fluid situation. Information still coming in to investigators, so apologize for the timing of all this, but in terms of the times of the press conferences and whatnot. But we will get that information to you as soon as it becomes available. As soon as they're up and standing up at the mic, we will be sure to bring that to you. But again, 3 people, according to Lou Raguse and his law enforcement sources, have passed away, including the shooter, and most tragically, that child.
Yes, and we do know others were injured. At this point, we just don't know how many. You are looking now at a live picture from the scene, as well as a map to put into perspective where we are there. You can see Annunciation Church. This is in the Tangletown neighborhood of Minneapolis on 54th Street, west of 35W. And then you can see the Reunification Center on there around 54th and Lyndale. That's where parents are going to reunite with their children, something Jessica Hart has been witnessing for a long time now as kids are reuniting with their parents. And our Audrey Rousseau sent out just a photo, which to me was so incredibly poignant and heartbreaking.
Striking, very striking.
Striking, yes, that's a great word for it. These are little children. This is a K-8 school. There was a child walking hand in hand with a Minneapolis police officer that barely came up to his elbow. These are little kids, and some were also holding hands with their parents, you know, who are undoubtedly are so relieved that they are safe, but also incredibly traumatized by the fact that they have been wondering now for hours about their kids, and knowing that their kid is going to have a long road ahead. A child who's witnessed and experienced something like this is going to be affected by it.
That's not trauma that goes away very easily. That takes a long time, especially if you're seeing your classmates wounded in front of you. You're having the fear of having to hide in a desk or barricade a door. That's not something that that's not something anybody should be experiencing, much less a child. So, I mean, you think of the aftermath of this and what it's going to do to these kids' psyches. Jessica was saying that she saw these kids walking out and just blank expressions on their faces. You could see the fear on their faces, and that's not going away anytime soon. These kids go to school thinking that it's a place of safety, it's a place of fun, it's a place of learning, and they're not going to see it that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and a church community also is so important to people, people who have been longtime parishioners of Annunciation Church. These are people who are going to be impacted by it. There is an 8:15 Mass every Wednesday morning at Annunciation Church, and this morning we're told by multiple people there was an all-school Mass happening at that time, a back-to-school Mass. I said earlier I went to Catholic school. That back-to-school Mass is something that is, a universal experience for the school. You come together, you sing, you pray for a great year ahead, and you're thankful to be back together. And today, according to law enforcement, according to Richfield Police, a person all in black with a rifle walked in and opened fire.
Yeah, and with this happening, religion and all that is going to be something you have to lean on. You have to lean on that faith in the aftermath of that, because what else can you rely on? A lot of people go to church for that comfort, and it's that same church building, it's that same church community that you have to rely on to help you get through this tragedy.
That's why I thought it was so interesting and so impactful that Catholic priest, who is from the area, grew up near Annunciation Church, and is now, I believe he said, a priest at St. Olaf Church in Minneapolis, walked over to HCMC to be there with the parents, to just offer comfort and prayer with them as they waited for word on their loved ones.
Yeah, and we're going to need a lot of that from our community to help lift up these families, help lift up these parents, help lift up these kids, because they're going to be going through a lot here in the aftermath of this. So the community is going to be necessary and crucial to help us through this tragedy.
Gordon Severson is also at the scene, saying he's seeing multiple current city council members at the scene, trying to get updates from police at the scene. They're also waiting near the press conference. We are awaiting a news conference from Minneapolis police. We're told Chief O'Hara is on the scene. They're going to answer the questions that they can. This is early in their investigation. First step is make sure the area is secure, make sure victims are accounted for, make sure these children are reunited with their families. Second step is piecing together this investigation. Who is this gunman who we are told is dead? What led to this shooting? Did the gunman act alone? There are so many questions that they do need to piece together. Now, earlier we had some reports, unconfirmed, that there may have been some sort of explosive devices. Lou Raguse said his sources had not confirmed that from him. A photojournalist at the scene, David Peterlin's, telling us he has seen St. Paul PD rolling in with a bomb squad unit. So if that may be a precautionary thing at this point. We don't want to cause any alarm, likely precautionary, but this is the sort of thing that our crews on the scene are seeing.
You would figure if there was an active device there, the area would be evacuated and whatnot. So that may completely be precautionary.
Yeah, because there are blocks, about 2 blocks, Lou said, in terms of a perimeter. But as you can see, our cameras are relatively close to the front doors of the school. We do have Lou Raguse back on the phone, who has been talking to sources all morning. Lou, what can you tell us? What have you learned?
Well, right now I'm making my way over to the area where the presser is, the press conference where Chief O'Hara is expected to give us some confirmed details. And I'll just explain kind of what the scene is like around here. So Jessica has been doing a lot of reporting.
It's an NBC News special report. Here's Joe Fryer.
We're coming back on the air with breaking news out of Minneapolis. Police and the mayor holding a news conference on a shooting that unfolded this morning at a Minneapolis church, Annunciation Church, also a school, pre-K to 8th grade. Let's listen in to Mayor Jacob Fry.
But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country. I'm so deeply saddened, and I'm so sorry to the families that I know are suffering right now. My ask is to everyone, stand by them, love them. These families have forever been changed, and we've all been changed with them. We need to do everything possible to support them through this time. We have a family resource center that has been set up. I'm grateful for all of the law enforcement agencies from a number of different jurisdictions, all the different departmental support that we've received. They're going to be working tirelessly. There's also a family resource center that is being set up as we speak to make sure that we're there for everybody. Again, to the families that are suffering, to those that have experienced loss, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We love you. This kind of act of evil should never happen, and it happens far too often. The chief will provide additional details.
My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. Earlier today, just before 8:30 a.m., our city experienced an unthinkable tragedy. Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a shooting at a mass that was happening at the Annunciation Roman Catholic Church on the block behind me. This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the Mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building, while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. Ages 8 and 10 were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children. 2 of those children are in critical condition. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church. Our hearts are broken for the families who have lost their children, for these young lives that are now fighting to recover, and for our entire community that has been so deeply traumatized by this senseless attack. We will stand together to protect our children, our schools, and our houses of worship. This deliberate act of violence is just a sign of cruelty that is beyond comprehension. Our hearts are broken for everyone that's been affected by this tragedy. As we begin the difficult path of healing, I want the community to know this, that even in the face of such evil, the Minneapolis Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners stand with our community. We stand with these families and with this parish. We will continue to be here for you. With that, the investigation is obviously in its preliminary stages, and I will attempt to take some questions to provide further information.
Chief, what can you tell us about the suspect in this case? How old was he? Any kind of motivation? Any notes or any other information he might have left?
So we were looking, the question was, what can be said about the shooter? We believe it is one suspect, a sole shooter. We believe he is deceased. He is in his early 20s, does not have an extensive known criminal history, and we are looking through information left behind to try and determine some type of motive. Yeah.
How many students do you have about?
How many children? There were, I don't have an exact, the question was how many children at the school. There were dozens of children inside the mass at the time. I don't have an exact count. The children have been relocated into the school, which is where their families are reunifying with them. Reg.
Other than the weapons, was the shooter a student, former student? Was he a former employee? Do we know that?
The question was, do we know if the shooter was a former school employee or a former student? We don't have that information.
Did he leave anything behind other than the weapons?
There's a vehicle. The question was anything left behind? There's a vehicle that we believe that the suspect used that is being searched, and we will be conducting other searches related to this. Inside the parking lot here.
Yep.
There
was some neighbors who said that the door to the church had been barricaded.
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the question was, neighbors had said that the door to the church had been barricaded. The shooter approached on one side of the church building, and on that side, at least two doors, it appears there had been like a 2x4 placed. So not all of the doors around the building, but on the side where the shooter did fire.
And on the outside?
On the outside, yes. The question was there any explosives? There were reports of that. There were no explosives or improvised devices that we found. I do believe there was one, I guess you would call it a smoke bomb, like not an explosive, but a sort of a firework that would release smoke.
And which side of the building, north, south?
The side that is closest to us, here, on this side, yep. I don't have specific information on that I can release. The question was, is he dead from a gunshot wound? The answer is yes. We believe he took his own life in the parking lot.
Was this outside or both inside that he was shooting?
The question was he shooting outside and inside? He was absolutely shooting outside of the building on the side of the church, inside through the windows. It appears he may have gone inside, but I don't believe we've located any casings inside the building. So I'm not certain if he fired also while inside. It appears, if not all, most of the shooting happened outside the building.
Is this shooting related to any other shootings that happened in the last 24
So,
hours?
yeah, Taylor's asking, is this related to any of the other shootings? This does not appear to be related to any other shooting in the city.
Do you know approximately how many rounds were fired?
The question was how many rounds? I would say it's in the dozens. We don't have an exact count. There's a sidewalk on the outside as well as a grassy area. So obviously we are going through and taking our time to process the scene.
Was he firing just one weapon, like the rifle?
The question was he firing one weapon? We believe he had fired all three. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Chief, was this individual licensed to conceal or carry? Did he have any?
Were the weapons, was he lawfully carrying the weapons? I don't have that information. And I don't have any information on any significant criminal history either.
Was he dressed at all in any tactical type of gear or anything?
It appeared he had some black clothing on, his cargo type pants. I guess you could interpret that as, however you like.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping us to get the information out today. We have a lot more work that needs to be done. We will return back later today to provide more details as they become available, and we'll let you know how you can know about that in the moments to come. Thank you.
How can the public help?
An update there from Minneapolis police and the mayor of Minneapolis. We just learned from officials 2 children were killed, 17 others were injured. That's 14 children and 3 adults at a Minneapolis Catholic school during a mass taking place this morning, just a couple days after school started there. Police say the 2 children who were killed, ages 8 and 10, they were killed when a gunman fired using multiple weapons, shooting from outside of the church through the church windows at the children who were sitting in pews. Let's bring in NBC's Adrian Broaddus, who, like me, has worked in Minneapolis for years, knows this area well. Adrian, what else can you tell us about what we're learning?
Some tough details this morning coming from Chief Brian O'Hara, Joe. That's right, 2 children killed, and now the families of those children will have to plan their funerals. We're talking about the lives of an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old who were sitting in the pews of a church when that gunman fired shots. The chief telling us he fired 3 weapons, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. 17 people were injured, 14 of them children. That's right. You guys heard me say 17 people injured, 14 of them kids. This happened during Mass this morning at Annunciation Church there on the south side of Minneapolis. The motive, still unclear. Investigators say they believe the suspect, who they have described as a 20-year-old male, left behind possibly a vehicle. They think that car is that person's vehicle. Why he did this, it's still unclear. Now, for our viewers who are just catching up on this, prior to this incident, there were multiple shootings in Minneapolis. The chief saying he does not think those shootings were related. But the shooting took place outside of the church. The 20-year-old suspect shooting through the windows. He hit children and worshipers inside. This is the first week of school for those kids. It's a pre through 8th grade school, and it's a Catholic school, so they were having Mass to start the beginning of the new year. And I think what struck me the most, Joe, is when Mayor Jacob Fry said, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's time out for thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying inside a church, Joe.
Some strong statements there from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry. Adrian, thank you so much. Let's bring in NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter. Tom, anytime we cover a school shooting, it is difficult to hear the details, but it is just chilling to hear police describing the gunman standing outside of the church, shooting through the window at kids who are attending the first Mass of the year, just their 3rd day of the school year. Police telling us no real criminal history they know of with this suspect, who is in his early 20s. Unclear at this point if he was a former student or ever worked at the church or the school. What else are you hearing and learning right now?
Yeah, so the police chief there, Brian O'Hara, calling it sheer cruelty at this press conference, going into detail as far as what happened. The incident, what struck out to me is that 2 of the doors were apparently bolted or at least secured with a 2x4, according to him. And so that would have made it difficult for the shooter to get inside. Now, we don't know whether that happened either just prior to or just after the shots were initially fired. But obviously, there was an effort here to keep anybody out of the church. And yet this individual individual was still able to kill an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, firing through the windows, saying that he used all three weapons, a rifle, presumably a semi-automatic rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol were all used throughout the shooting. Not clear what he used to specifically initially fire upon those students who, as we've been reporting, were sitting in their pews as part of their first week of school and celebrating Mass as part of that first week of school. This individual, as the chief said, as you alluded to, Joe, no significant background or history. We've talked to a number of people in law enforcement circles this morning in the counterterrorism and intelligence realms within law enforcement. Still no initial indication of a motive for this. The chief indicated that they're going to continue to search this person who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the back of that church at some point. Apparently, he was able to get inside, although it's not clear and no initial indication, according to the chief, that he actually fired from inside the church. But this individual, they're going to search him, see if there's any information on him. He kind of alluded to that that could help out with motive here. There was a vehicle that was left behind on school grounds, on the church grounds, that they're going to search, as well as the chief alluded to some other searches that would be taking place, presumably this individual's residence and background. He was asked about the weapons and whether or not this individual was lawfully allowed to carry these weapons. He did note that there was no significant criminal history. I'll translate that out of law enforcement to plain speak. That typically means no significant felonies, which would perhaps make it difficult for this individual to have obtained these weapons or continue to hold them. But as we've seen so often, Joe, in so many shootings, whether the laws are in place or they're not, typically, obviously, somebody that's going to do that is not going to follow the law. So a lot of questions about who this individual is and why they did it. No questions this morning about the severity of this incident and the sadness that's associated with it. Anytime in particular we're talking about students that are dead.
And we do know, and we want to listen right now, officials with Hennepin County Medical Center who are treating some of the wounded are speaking right now. Let's listen into that.
A page that we were going to have a mass casualty incident at 8:46 a.m. this morning. That gave us time to mobilize all of our resources and prepare our teams. We are a level 1 trauma center, and we prepare and we train for this. Having said that these incidents are never easy. We've had 2 in the last 24 hours that have occurred, these mass casualty incidents. The one today, we received a total of 11 patients from this incident. 2 of them were adult patients, 9 pediatric patients. 4 of them required the operating room. And up to this point in time, there have been no fatalities related to any of those patients that were brought to our organization. I want to take a moment to tell you how proud I am to work for this organization and the teams that were involved, the resources, again, that were mobilized, our surgical colleagues, our medicine colleagues, our amazing nursing staff, our psychologists that help process these events for us, environmental services, all those involved. Hennepin EMS brought in all the critical patients from that scene to our organization, and we were very lucky to have 2 emergency medical services directors that were on scene and able to provide us with really important information that, again, helped us to prepare for this event. So I don't have any individual or specific information about the patients at this time for you, so that's all I can share. Thank you for being here. Any questions?
So they were in critical condition?
7 were brought in as critical patients, and at this time, I don't know the updates on what the conditions are of many of them. 4 of them required the operating room, as I said. There were, again, 9 of the 11 patients were the pediatric ages. I can't remember the exact name, the exact ages. I believe it's 6 all the way up to 14. That's the range.
Can you tell us a little bit about what types of teams you had working this morning, how many people it takes to
Yeah, whenever that type of a page goes out, again, it really puts into motion a lot of a big response from all of the teams. And so because we're a level 1 trauma center, we have to, mobilize certain types of resources like, operating rooms and the surgical services. We have to have emergency providers and nurses. We have to, mobilize things like the laboratory and the blood bank. So there's a lot of planning, and again, a lot of exercises we do throughout the year to prepare for these events. And unfortunately, we respond to many of them throughout the year.
Can you talk about the injuries at all, or any type of what you're seeing here with some of these patients?
I can't get into specifics, but we are dealing with gunshot wound injuries from apparently a high-velocity weapon. And, gunshot wounds can be very problematic because they can involve multiple body systems. And again, they require a lot of resources to manage. But again, we see a lot of gunshot wounds here at Hennepin Healthcare, and we're among the best in the nation every year at managing penetrating trauma. So we are used to seeing them.
Can you tell us where the status of the 11, are any of them still in surgery?
I don't know the status of that. I can't share that with you at this time.
Was anyone shot more than once?
I can't share that information with you at this time.
Can you confirm the families of some of the victims have made their way here?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of effort to stand up a reunification center across the street here at our clinical specialty care building. And so to my knowledge, I believe all or almost all of the families and loved ones have been reunited with patients and know their status.
Do you know if anyone is being treated at any other locations?
My understanding was we had a lot of the non-critical patients that went to Children's Hospital, and I believe one went to Masonic Children's Hospital as well. I don't know the status of any of those patients. Yeah, it does take a toll. Thank you for asking that question. I think, again, we have psychologists that we have dedicated to our emergency department to help with our providers and our nurses and other workers that manage these types of events. Again, we've had 2 mass casualty events happen in the last 24 hours. I mean, that does take a toll. But we also have to recognize that we are here as a critical resource for our community, and we have to take time to process, the care that we deliver in these situations, and we have to be able to move forward because we are obviously needed.
None of those patients have been discharged?
Not to my knowledge.
You said there were 11 total, and 9 of them were pediatrics ages 6 to 14, but 7 were in critical condition. Are all of those that are pediatric, those 6 to 14, are all of those the critical condition, or the ones that are older also in critical condition?
I don't want to misspeak here. I believe that all of the pediatric patients were the ones that were in the critical condition. Yes.
And did I get my numbers right in saying that the numbers
You did.
are?
You did.
Can you give us your specific title one more time, doctor?
It's Thomas Wyatt, Chair of Emergency Medicine at Hennepin Healthcare. Thank you.
Check out our newsroom too, because I will be posting the exact information on the patients, their conditions, just those general conditions and the numbers. The Hennepin Healthcare Newsroom. Thanks for coming.
Do you anticipate any other updates?
I'm hoping to give another update later.
From Hennepin County Medical Center, an update there, which has treated 11 of the patients who were injured in the shooting earlier at Annunciation. In all, 17 people were injured, 14 of them kids. We now know 11 of those patients, 9 kids, 2 adults, were taken to Hennepin County Medical Center. 4 of them needed to go into the operating room. So far, no fatalities reported from anyone who was taken to that hospital. We know other patients were taken to Children's Minnesota. That's a children's hospital about 5 miles from the scene of today's shooting. The doctor also referencing there, it has been a tough 24 hours in Minneapolis. There was another mass casualty shooting yesterday afternoon in South Minneapolis. 7 people shot, 1 killed. Police making the point a little earlier, they do not believe that shooting is connected to the church shooting that took place this morning. We want to bring in Tom Winter once again. Tom, we understand you have some new reporting to share with us. What are you learning?
Yeah, just to add to what you were saying there, Joe, the ages 6 to 14 of those that are being treated among the kids there at the hospital. Whenever we hear about an incident involving a rifle, presumed to be a semi-automatic rifle, some folks call that an assault-type rifle, but with so many modifications available to these weapons these days, we'll just keep it at the semi-automatic rifle stage of this. I think whenever you hear about injuries to kids as young as the age of 6, and the doctor alluded to it there, it is extremely serious. So when we say critical, these kids are really in critical condition because of the damage that those rounds do to a child's body. Having covered more school shootings than I care to remember, that's something that's always top of mind and obviously be on the officials' mind. As far as the investigation and where it stands right now, it strikes me that individuals took precautions to keep this person from outside the church. Perhaps some of these doors were locked or barricaded even before it happened, and yet now we see an incident. In prior school shootings, we've pointed out Uvalde, Texas is an example, several other school communities where the doors were open or doors were able to be accessed for a shooter to get inside of a facility. It appears here that that wasn't the case, and it wasn't until the very end of the shooting that this individual was able to get inside of the church. What does that all mean? It means that some of the best practices were followed here, and yet, obviously, we're dealing with a complete tragedy today. The investigation now focusing on the motive for this individual in his early 20s. No significant criminal history, we're told. That typically means no major felonies, no serious interactions with the court system. Still working to confirm the name of this person. They are actively checking this individual's body to see if there are any sort of writings left behind. Obviously, in this day and age, the phone is kind of a personal diary for all of us as far as our activities and what our interests are. And so we're going to continue to see if we can develop some information that law enforcement gets throughout the course of that. And they are searching his vehicle and presumably his last address right now, if not already. So that's where the investigation stands into this individual. The incident is over. He did die of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, Joe.
All right, Tom, we know you'll keep us updated as you learn new information throughout the day. We want to bring in now Jan Unstad. She was an eyewitness who was driving near the school when the shooting happened. She saw parents pulling over to run into the school again. An all-school mass was taking place at the time of the shooting. Jan, we know this has been an incredibly difficult morning for you. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. How are you doing right now? And tell us a little more about what you saw as you were driving by.
Thank you. Good morning. It was certainly a horrifying way to start the day. It's in my neighborhood, and I was driving along a main road where the church and school are located, actually on my way to the state fair, and I could see a few EMS vehicles, and my first thought was maybe there was a bad car accident at the intersection or something. And as I approached from about a block away, it was obvious there's a little sort of half circle in front of the church that's a drop-off zone, and that was filled with law enforcement vehicles and EMS vehicles. More were coming from every direction, it seemed. I took off down a side street to try and get around it, and along those side streets, there's probably two of them, then you run into Minnehaha Creek, which is a barrier. But parents were dumping their vehicles on the side streets, and running toward the school and the church. When I finally tried to get out of, the mess to make my way to where I was going, you could see that there were patients loaded onto stretchers with EMS workers working on them. And then as I continued down 54th Street, which is Diamond Lake Road there, for another several blocks, there were squads on both sides of the street, more of them coming off of the freeway headed that direction. You could see SWAT coming. You could see what appeared to be the bomb squad coming. It was just, it looked like every law enforcement vehicle within the city of Minneapolis and Hennepin County was there. And it was horrifying. It was dreadfully obvious that this was some mass event that was not good.
I know this had to have been an incredibly difficult thing for you to see and experience, Jan. You mentioned you live in the neighborhood. I'm from Minneapolis. My mother-in-law taught second grade at Annunciation when she first moved to Minnesota in the late 1970s. This was a long time ago, but it is a caring, welcoming environment. It's a school and a church that plays a huge role in the community there, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. I mean, there's kids on my block where I live who go to Annunciation and always have. My next door neighbor had 4 kids who went to Annunciation, and you can always tell, when school has started because it's the main intersection, as you would know, and there's kids and the parents hang out in the Starbucks across the street after they've dropped their kids off, and so it is a very active place as the school year starts, with lots and lots of kids and parents in that 1 block radius right around the school and church.
What's going through your mind at this moment as you think about what you've witnessed this morning and everything we've learned in the aftermath?
All I could think, I literally continued on my way to the fair, and as I was heading up the freeway, probably 3 or 4 ambulances went by, obviously on their way to HCMC, and all you can think of is the horror and the prayers for the people who were involved and those whose kids were injured, and those whose kids weren't injured, but their classmates were and their friends were. It's just something no one should have to experience.
Just the senselessness of hearing the details described by the police chief moments ago, describing they believe the gunman was standing outside of the school, firing through the window, firing inside at the students who were sitting in their pews for their first all-school mass of this school year that started just days ago. Jan Unstead, we appreciate your time and for sharing your thoughts and helping us understand the neighborhood a little bit better. We are thinking of you and the entire community right now.
Thank you so much. Think of those parents and those kids.
We do want to recap. Officials say that 2 children are dead after the shooting that took place this morning at Annunciation Church and School. 17 others were injured. That includes 14 children at this mass shooting at the Catholic school. It was taking place during that church mass. The shooter died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The investigation just getting started. Police saying that they recovered 3 weapons from the gunman who killed himself in the back of the church. A suspect believed to be in his early 20s with no extensive criminal history, dressed all in black clothing, wearing cargo-type pants, the police chief says. We're going to keep you updated as we learn more throughout the day, and we're going to have much more ahead on NBC News Daily and on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com. And, of course, a full wrap-up tonight on NBC Nightly News. I'm Joe Fryer. Thank you for watching.
Get eyes on that or seen the search of that car?
That's a great question, and no, I have not. The part where the shooting took place right now is the most well blocked off area for obvious reasons. If Gordon Severson is able to do a live hit with you, his crew over there with Mitchell Yale is the crew that's closest to that spot, so they would be ones to ask if they have eyes on that. One thing to note is that in a situation like this, they can get into a vehicle like that immediately to search because of exigent circumstances, emergent circumstances, and then they likely will get after they tow it away, a warrant to do a more comprehensive search of the vehicle. But the first thing they need to do is figure out if there are explosives or anything like that. And so I'm certain that's what the initial search of that vehicle consisted of. And then there'll be, more to be done after that, including whether there's any notes or anything left behind, additional weapons and so forth in the vehicle.
Lou, thank you for that insight, and thanks for your reporting out there. We're going to let you go now, continue to do some reporting at that area. This is a situation that's developing, although we certainly have gotten a lot of new information in about the last half hour. So, Lou, thank you. One thing I do want to share, we received an email from a viewer who was a witness, they say, and I'm sharing this because I think it highlights the bravery of some of the people involved here. And this person, his name is Sean Olson, said he came up on the school and saw that the first few police officers were just getting there. Before I knew it, I was just west of the entrance to the church doors. He saw the kids piled up on each other, crouching with their heads down, and teachers huddled over the top of them, putting their lives at risk, and clearly scared. Meanwhile, he saw cops running in with their guns drawn and going straight into the church. And I just wanted to share that because I think that witness account highlights the bravery of teachers who are tasked not only with teaching kids, but in this situation, putting their own lives at risk to protect them. And also with officers not knowing what the situation is at this point and running in.
Yeah, officers, obviously are the first responders. That's why we call them first responders, the first to respond to the scene. They don't know what they're running into, but they run into it anyway because that is what they do. And as far as the teachers, I mean, you send your kid to school and you expect them to come back to you. And your teacher is that line of defense, in a way of that. They're protecting their students. They're there to be there for their students. And it just shows how much they care for those students, how much they care for their well-being. To pile on top of them, to be that literal human shield for them, just shows the selflessness of our educators.
Absolutely, it does. And I think, we've been focusing on the children who were hurt. Of course, we know that 2 children now were killed, an 8 and a 10-year-old. There were 17 injuries overall. Most of them were children, 14 of them. But that means that there are also adults who are injured. And we do not know who they are. Were they teachers? Were they teachers who were also in that church praying with children to start their school year, potentially putting themselves in harm's way?
So just to recap here, it's 11:30 here on this Wednesday, and we are continuing to follow this breaking news, this mass shooting, this senseless shooting that happened just before 8:30 this morning, happened during Mass over at Ascension Catholic Church. This Mass was marking the first week of school. The shooter approaches the school from the side of the school, barricades a couple of the doors, and starts firing shots into the windows there during this Mass, this second day of school Mass. He brought a shotgun, a rifle, and a pistol with him. He used the rifle to shoot through the glass. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old killed in the process here. They're all sitting in the pews, and their lives end in just an instant.
At the same time, 17 people injured, including 14 children. We know from HCMC that 7 of them were critical when they were brought in there. Pediatric patients between the ages of 6 and 14, all with gunshot wounds from a high-velocity weapon, that rifle that you mentioned. And you heard the chief and the mayor both talking about the community and the need to sort of wrap them in love and support after such a traumatic thing. Just a short while ago, Chris Rapsky talked on the phone with former state senator, I should say, Jeff Hayden. His kids went to school at this K-8 school years ago, but he still can describe a little bit the community there and how they're a family. Let's listen in.
My daughter went there from the 1st to the 8th grade in the 2000s. She's 24 now, almost 24. My son went there for middle school. So we have a lot of friends and family, or what we consider family, that they have lifelong bonds. We have some friends right now that don't live too far from there that are in front of the school. And what my daughter told me was that they have Mass every Wednesday, and then this is the welcome Mass that they have on Wednesday. So the school or the cathedral, the church would have been full of the community as well as all of the children. All of the children would go to Mass, and this would be their welcome Mass, but they did it every week. So, the only thing we know is what you guys have, others have been reporting someone came in and started shooting. But the point of that, I guess, is that, it could have easily, in a different time been my own children or my friends' children, because all of the kids from kindergarten to 8th grade would be in that Mass. This thing touches you, man, in ways, and every time it happens, that same stuff just all floods you, like the same feeling floods you. So I'm not sure what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, but I just think that the amount of gun violence that's happening in this country and the availability, sounds like this person had a rifle. I don't know if it's an AR or what. I've worked on this stuff, since at least I got back in the community because of gun violence. I worked on it after my sister died. I've worked on it legislatively and professionally, and it doesn't speak.
Jeff Hayden talking about when his kids went there to Annunciation and the significance of that back-to-school welcome Mass that they were experiencing this morning when a gunman started firing in through the windows at children in the pews.
It's supposed to be a moment of joy, a time of reunion after not seeing your friends for the entire summer. Everybody's in there to fellowship and to worship together and to sing together. And this is the very last thing you would ever expect on the second day of school. And as he mentioned, like, there's this feeling of helplessness. Where do you go from here? What do you do? This is something that keeps happening over and over in this country, and there's just this feeling of helplessness for so many people, especially parents that are sending their kids to school not knowing if they're going to make it back home.
Absolutely. It happens in communities across the country, all sorts of different types of school, big towns, small towns, now in the Tangletown neighborhood of Minneapolis at a Catholic elementary or a Catholic K-8 school there. We are continuing to follow this breaking news with reporters on the scene. We will be checking back with them in a short while. We do want to update you on the conditions of the people who were shot. We know that at least 7 of them were critical when brought in, 9 pediatric patients, 6 between the ages of 6 and 14, 2 adults. That was 11 patients, adds up to 11 patients brought to HCMC, another 6 at Children's Minnesota. Those were told non-critical injuries.
And you heard from the Dr. Wyatt that spoke there a few minutes ago. He was saying that this is the second mass shooting in the last 24 hours. It's enough to deal with one. We had a shooting yesterday where 6 people were shot in broad daylight, brought to the hospital. 1 person died. And now they're having to deal with this on top of that. It strains the resources. And, you know, he kind of spoke to the emotion of it. I mean, as a doctor, you're seeing kids come in with these just horrific injuries, and you have to treat them, and you have to work to save their lives, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
And we are certainly thankful for their efforts. As he said, 11 patients brought in with gunshot wounds from a high-velocity weapon. All of those patients brought to HCMC are still alive.
Yes.
And so we are thankful to those doctors and nurses and staff there, as I'm sure these families are.
Still alive. Unfortunately, some of the wounds they have, those may never heal,
Mental,
which is great.
emotional,
Emotional,
trauma.
physical. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that, our Jessica Hart has been at the school throughout this morning and has witnessed some of these reunifications. So emotional, so trying for these parents who have spent hours just waiting to be reunited with their kids. Jessica, what are you seeing now?
Lauren, we got pushed back about a block from where we were earlier this morning. So we were down there by 54th and Garfield. Police asked all of us to move back as they kind of expanded the perimeter of this scene. You can see they're still kind of blocking off all of the entrances to the school, but it's not as many first responder vehicles as we saw earlier this morning. About 3 FBI agents just walked right by us. I asked if they were kind of headed home for the day, and they simply said no. So from that reaction, I could tell that they're going to be here for a while. I also talked with a woman who lives just a few houses down. She was not home during the time of the shooting, but she tells me that her children were, and they heard everything. She says they don't go to school here. They go to Wyndham, and they start school next week. And what's really scaring her right now is just the motive. She wants to know, why would someone do this? Did they go to school here? Did they live nearby? I know those were questions that were asked at the press conference that we're still waiting and working to get an answer on. Right now, the scene over here is really quieted down quite a bit here. We haven't seen really any families walking this way in quite some time as police have expanded the perimeter here. Now they're not letting anyone get in or out of this area, so they are letting vehicles leave. We are right next to a grocery store, Kowalski, so they're letting cars get out, but no one is allowed to come in. Police also keep walking up and down the streets here, just kind of patrolling the area. It doesn't look like they're searching for any evidence as they were this morning. We saw kind of canines walking around here. And something else too is that all the officers and law enforcement, they're walking in groups. We just saw kind of a couple of groups walk down the street. I haven't seen anyone really walking around this scene by themselves. Now we've seen Minneapolis Police, Park Police, Minneapolis Fire, ATF, FBI, Homeland. We did see someone with bomb squad earlier today as well, even though the police chief, Brian O'Hara, confirmed there were no explosives found on this scene here. It's still a very active scene, but it has quieted down quite a bit since that press conference wrapped up, but people are still patrolling the area. It looks like school officials have been coming in and out of the school building as well, but still 2 people at the front entrance. There's another police officer at a secondary entrance. So it's been very quiet over here. We haven't seen too much action. So as soon as we see something new or learn something a little bit different, we'll keep you updated. And actually, as I just kind of said that, I'll have to step out of the way here shortly. There's a Red Cross vehicle actually making its way down here to probably set up to help people who are in need. So I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, Jessica, thank you for your reporting there on the scene throughout the morning. Appreciate it. You know, we do have reporters all around that area. That includes our Gordon Severson, who was at that news conference with Mayor Fry and Chief O'Hara. He's on the side of the building, I believe, Gordon, closest to where this gunman opened fire through windows. And I'm curious what you can tell us about the investigation happening there, and if you have been able to see this vehicle that police are searching that the gunman supposedly left behind.
Yeah, I haven't been able to see anything at the church. We actually just did an interview just a second ago, just down the street here, that I wanted to share with you all. We spoke with a woman who is a nanny for a few kids, and she was actually driving to work this morning and just happened to be kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time, drove through this scene just after it had happened, and she kind of got roped into the scene and was kind of told that she has to kind of stay in this area, and her car is still there by the school. She actually, you know, called her mom, and her mom is here with her, and just kind of dealing with this whole situation. And she was, you know, obviously very, you know, emotional, working with kids herself. She didn't quite know exactly what was going on when she got caught up in this scene and was told she couldn't leave for her own safety. And, you know, during the interview, her mom shared just one of those heartbreaking moments with us, saying that she got the call just a couple, you know, hour or so ago from her daughter saying, you know, Mom, I want you to know I'm safe, but something terrible happened, and I'm stuck here, and I'm afraid. And she said that's the call that you just never want to receive as a parent, and she stayed on the line with her daughter, talking her through it. She talked, this nanny, this young woman talked about seeing these parents running into the school, bringing their kids out, and just the emotional nature of that. And she said it just really took a toll on her, seeing so many parents going in one after the other, and those families reuniting after all of this that happened. And so she's, you know, just a couple feet from us right now in the shade, just kind of processing everything. And I'm sure there's just hundreds of people that, you know, didn't have kids that go to the school, go to this church, but are in the neighborhood or caught up in this. It's just amazing to think of how many people were affected by this, that, you know, indirectly in other ways, and a lot of emotions here, a lot of people just trying to process what's going on. I'm sure a lot of parents watching this right now, getting their kids ready for school, trying to process all of this right now. And so it's just, you know, really heavy being here at the scene and just, you know, just a few hundred feet away from us, knowing what happened and still figuring everything out and getting the details from police. I know all of us that are parents here at the station are also trying to figure this out as well.
Yeah. Gordon, thank you for sharing that. You talk about phone calls no one wants to get. Let's keep at the forefront the phone call or the in-person visit that two families got today, the family of an 8 and a 10-year-old who were killed in this shooting while sitting in the pews there. And Gordon, we will let you go, continuing to report on this from the scene. But you can't imagine. It is absolutely incomprehensible, the grief and the shock that they must be feeling right now, that they sent their kids off for the beginning of the school year. You know, these are parents who chose Annunciation School, and likely because they appreciated the tight-knit community, the church community, and their kids are sitting in the pews worshiping for the back-to-school mass, and a gunman comes and shoots through the window.
They probably thought it was a safe place. You know, it's a church building. It's a place that provides that comfort that maybe a public school wouldn't provide, and that's obviously not the case here this morning. And you wonder, you know, other parents tomorrow morning, when you wake your kids up and it's time for them to go to school, this is going to be in the back of your mind, no doubt, because these parents this morning had no idea they were going to wake up this morning and send their kids off to school, this 8-year-old and this 10-year-old, and they weren't going to come back home later this afternoon.
Absolutely. Now, to mention that there are families of other children now sitting at the hospital as they undergo surgeries and treatment for gunshot wounds. Just to bring everyone up to speed here, the gunman in this situation is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police believe at this point he was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. At this point, they have no real indication of a motive or any connection to this school or the school community. They're doing searches trying to learn more about that. They do know he was in his early 20s and he does not have an extensive criminal history. So this investigation is still in its very early phases. So as the community wraps around these families, as the hospitals and the medical professionals work on healing these children's bodies and the three adults who were wounded, healing their bodies, the police investigation is just now beginning to piece together the tragedy that happened this morning at Annunciation Church and School.
We heard from Mayor Fry during that press conference. We heard from Chief O'Hara. He gave all the details. We heard from Mayor Fry to begin the press conference, and I think emotional is safe to say. I think he was angry. We'll let you hear that and hear what he had to say about the situation.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
I've rarely seen him that emotional. I've been here for about 3 years and seen many press conferences and many statements from him, but you could see just how much this tragedy today was just getting to him. And he talked about how these kids were literally praying. We talk about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when this happened.
Yeah, absolutely, making that point. And it's not just emotion, it's anger. I mean, the fact that this happened in his community to Minneapolis families. And I think that's the feeling so many of us have. You see these situations and people want to know the motive, want to know the why, when in fact there is no rational good reason for this. It's evil. It is an act that should never happen. And Chief O'Hara touched on that as well, talking about this as a cowardly act, as an act of evil. Let's hear what he had to say.
This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building, while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. 2 young children, ages 8 and 10, were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children.